my name's Patrick Mordorski. I'm an American War historian, and I brought to life the Battle of Tarawa in Lego.
So tell us a little bit about the significance of this battle and why you chose to build this.
Well, a lot of people were not too familiar with this battle. I actually had 5 people who didn't actually know about this battle. This took place in November 1943. Lasted from November 20th to the 23rd, and yeah, so this was one of the key islands that the Marines had to take in the Gilbert Islands because it had an airfield on it. Its principal island was Batio, and it was all called Tarawa.
There you go, nice little overview. So let's start with kind of the water section over here. Tell us what we have happening in this part of the build.
Sure. So what you're looking at now is a Higgins Boat, a Brickmania kit that got destroyed by one of the Japanese guns on the mountain. All the crew is they're all basically dead from that one shot. Anyway, this boat right here is a little bit more successful with Marines coming out, and then this Higgins boat right here got, they're right in front of the Japanese machine gun bunkers, so that might not be pretty good. You can see them climbing over the sides trying to get out. Yeah, they try and get cover any way they could because they got to get out of that line of fire.
And then how about the tank that's coming to shore there?
That is they actually had a couple of Sherman tanks coming up to the beach. Some of them, they were called China Gal. That's Colorado. I built that from the Brickmania instruction books. That's actually my first Brickmania model right there. So I just bought the instruction book for that tank.
Yeah, fantastic. Those instruction books are really, really great for getting lots of inspiration for different models.
Definitely buy them. They're definitely worth your money for sure.
So as we make our way to shore, then you've got kind of the Americans lined up here. What do we have happening at the beginning of the shore section?
So when the Marines first landed on the beach, they were under some heavy fire going in. You can actually find lots of videos from World War II where the Marines made it onto the beach, but they were pinned down by the heavy machine gun fire. So they can't really poke their heads up, otherwise they'll get hit. So a lot of them, they were just pinned down, and they were just hoping to let the Japanese, they were waiting for the Japanese to run out of ammunition, basically. And then when they get that opportunity, that's when they climb over the wall.
So we've got a little bit of an American breach here coming into the Japanese lines with the flamethrower kind of leading the way.
Yep, definitely. So normally that would not normally be the case. Right now he's just a target for the machine gunners somewhere else. But the Marine flamethrower operators, they would be paired up with a couple of riflemen to give them support, lay down covering fire while they move up close to Japanese trenched in position and burn them out.
And speaking of the Japanese defenses, we've got this great kind of like defensive bunker position here that has multiple layers. So what all do we have happening in this section?
Right. So Japanese, they were notorious for building underground systems. And this is what I did. I wanted to have like a mountain on the coastline of the beach and have like a bunker inside. And I wanted to have like an artillery position on top because the Japanese, they would make these bunkers on these sandy hills on Tarawa. And actual footage that I saw, there was a real flamethrower operator. He was on the hill, and he was actually shooting his flamethrower. So I kind of wanted to imitate that from actual footage. And I also used Lego nets for the camouflage to help them cover up and camouflage their artillery guns. And normally those guns would be on ships, and they wanted to use them for island defense. So they would dig a giant foxhole in them, and then they would just plop the gun right inside the giant hole and use it for our island defense.
Exactly. Tell us a little bit more about what's happening on the bottom section. I like the lighting in there so you can see everything.
Yeah, so basically, by the looks, you guys can definitely tell I've been doing this stuff before, but this is my first mock actually. So a lot of it was kind of like put together. Yeah, so basically in the bunker, lots of ammunition. one spark in there, the whole place will go up. But Japanese soldiers, they're manning their machine guns and they're just taking shots at the Marines on the other side of the outside of the bunker. A couple commander in there, making sure that all the troops do their jobs. A couple of guys in there. Well, there's one guy in there reloading, and they're just running out the bottom of the bunker and going into battle.
So then moving outside of the bunker, we go back to kind of a more open section. What do we have happening in front of the buildings out here?
So we have a couple of more. We got a foxhole right there, and we have a crater. So those craters, I know it's a really poor crater. I could have designed it better, but anyway. So before the Marines hit the island, there was a 7-minute bombardment. You know, before they landed, they were going to bomb it, and
the shells would have left very large craters on a lot of the island.
Yeah, definitely. They managed to destroy some supply dumps, some barracks, and some communications that the Japanese would have used. So all these positions right here, they would have been connected to headquarters with their commander, and a lot of that got destroyed when the bombing came.
So you see some of the Japanese troops kind of dug in there, firing on the Americans try to advance through the barbed wire and get to the Japanese positions.
Yeah, that's not a very smart idea. They should just let them. They should just wait until they run out of ammo. But unfortunately, one guy at the very end didn't get too lucky. He got caught in the barbed wire. So, I mean, you know.
One interesting thing with the Japanese that a lot of people don't think of is their tanks. So they're not nearly as well known as, say, like the British or the Germans, but the Japanese did have some tanks, and you have that represented here.
Yes, I think they had 7 tanks total on the island. A lot of them, they were trenched down, and they're supposed to just stay there for defense, and some of them, they were rolling around on the island. And a thing with China Gal, so China Gal was with another Sherman tank. They were trying to find a way over the 6-foot-high seawall. They managed to find a gap. They got in there, and then they came across a Type 95 light tank. So the Type 95 light tank took a shot at one of the Shermans. It hit the Sherman's gun. It hasn't knocked it out of action. It disabled it. So it messed up the rifling on the Sherman's barrel. So the Sherman couldn't use its gun. And it was up to China Gal to deal with the threat. So China Gal shot at one of the tanks, and the turret just blew completely off with one shot. And yeah, these Japanese tanks, they're not really reliable. Thin armor. If you hit a wire near the rear bracket right here, or you know, something, if you break wire, it would throw off the rear bogies by breaking that bracket or something. It will just throw the treads off the brackets.
Yeah. So this section back here, we see more Japanese defensive positions, kind of trench lines.
Yep. So this is a typical thing that they would have done with trenches. So you can see they dug it in zigzags, and you see that a lot in World War I, because if the enemy were to enter the trench, they can't be able to shoot down them. So that's why they made them in zigzags. And at the corner right there where the mortar pit is, you can see another crater, which looks better than that one. The corner got blown off, and then that's part of the trench, basically. And you can see a Japanese soldier right there. He got hit in the head. He pulled the pin on the grenade, and he just got shot in the head, so he's falling backwards, and that everyone in there is going to get blown up in just a few seconds. So.
You've also got some great buildings in here, so tell us a little bit about what these buildings represent, and then we'll take a look inside.
Yeah, sure. If you seen the Vietnam display that Brickmania had, these buildings are basically based off of those displays. You can find them in the Vietnam War instruction books. That's what I did, and I just really like Brickmania, and I just love their designs. If you saw their D-Day mocks, which I know you have, they just used pieces of Lego, and that's what I did. And yeah, I really like the log. I really like the log design on the houses. I also put them on stilts, so if the water were to come up a little bit overboard, those stilts will be able to make sure that the water doesn't reach the houses. So they would often put them on stilts to keep the water away. and they have detailed interiors. I left some pieces out so you can actually see inside them. And every so often, I took them off so people can get a better look inside them. And the roofs, they come off easily. So if I can get the roof off this first one for you, so you can see inside. So we got the basically the commander of Tarawa. His men are probably not following orders. Pretty angry. And we got weapons crates in there. That crate, I think, is a old Brickmania Japanese crate that they sold a long time ago. So I think you got a printed helmet, and you would have gotten a Japanese banner. Yeah, so that was a really limited edition kit. Also a very special piece to Brickmania.
Very nice. Brickmania has done so much over the years that there's tons of those little accessories and things that they've released.
Yeah, they definitely did. They're basically like my childhood heroes, basically. Yeah, they basically, Dan Siskin designed World War II Lego kits, and he combined two things that I absolutely love, Lego and World War II. Yeah. And I've been collecting, and I'm basically never going to stop. This is truly a passion that I have with Lego and history combined.
That's what's so cool about World War Brick here, about all of the incredible builds. But then let's take us inside the second building now.
Yep. So this one right here, you can make these houses bigger. You can make them smaller. I went, if you look at the front of the house right here, you can see where the naval shelling kind of hit the side of the house, and there's a machine gun in there. And I did the blown off roof to correspond with that corner. And let me see if I could get, this one's a little bit more complex, kind of difficult with one hand. There we go. So in there you got guys poking their rifles out. They're trying to take shots at the Marines that just breached the barbed wire fence. And you can see a table of sake in there, and you can see other special pieces that Brickmania made along with that kit, that crate that they released.
I also love this feature up top here in the tree with this Japanese sniper.
Yeah, so basically that's basically a suicide job. So, so the Japanese, they would have these planks up on these trees, and they would just shoot anyone that came near them or underneath them. That's basically a suicide job. Japanese sniper did not come out alive if he was lucky, which a lot of them weren't. I've seen footage. I think the Browning, the M1919 teams, they would just shoot at the trees, hoping to catch snipers, and they actually got quite a bit of snipers. And they would be tied to a rope so they wouldn't fall down completely. So it's supposed to be like a safety rope that's attached to them. But anyway, when they died and when they fell off the plank, they were just hanging upside down from that rope afterwards. So that's basically a suicide job if they were up for the task. Quite a bit of them were, because the Japanese, they fought for till the last man standing, and basically they just made the Marines fight for every square inch of all the islands they were trying to take from them.
Exactly, and I think you captured a lot of that very nicely here. So talk about kind of the process of building this whole large display, because it's quite sizable here. Where did you start with, and kind of how did this come together?
So I started with the beach, and I just worked my way inland. And the mountain was probably the most difficult. I want to say it took the most time to try and design, because I wanted to figure out what I can do to break it down, how to transport it. And I kind of just slapped it together. I know it's a pretty bad design. But anyway, this is just my first go at this. You learn from this stuff. So as you do more mocks in the future, you'll start to realize, how can I design this to be better? How can I break this down and transport it easier? You learn from this stuff as you go, and it'll be a piece of cake once you get the hang of it.
Yeah. No, that's a great attitude to have, and I think that's something that's worth keeping in mind for a lot of Lego builders. I think a lot of people, they build something for the first time and start to get frustrated because they're like, oh, this doesn't fit the image I had in my head. But then as you continue to build, year after year, and try out new techniques and new ways of using parts, then you can really get it to come together like you want.
Yep, definitely. So basically, I didn't look at relatively any photos from the battle. I just it's Lego. Use your imagination. I imaged what the battle was going to look like in Lego, and I just kind of rolled with it.
Yeah, well, thank you so much for taking us through the whole layout here, and I'm glad you can make it out to World War Brick.
Hey, you're welcome. Thank you for having me on the show. It's truly been a pleasure.